Thanks, everyone. Good morning. And just so you know, it's really slippery up here, so hopefully I don't fall down. So why am I here? When I was brought into a client to undertake several transformation projects, one of the first ones I undertook was working with the marketing team to conduct a rebranding exercise and build a new website. And subsequent to that, we arrived at the need to sell online. And as is becoming more apparent as we meet people through this conference, manufacturing is not suited to e-commerce without a lot of work. The company I'm speaking about is a long-term project. An established manufacturer, very successful, around for 75 years, distributes globally, et cetera, but it's a very traditional company. And the goal was, how do we modernize this company and take it into the 21st century with e-commerce? Quick show of hands, who here works as a merchant or represents a merchant? Oh, that's great. Any B2B merchants? That's great too. Anybody in manufacturing? Okay, one or two. So the reason I wanted to come speak today is once we embarked on this project to pursue e-commerce, we had to realize what are all the changes we need to make? What business are we really in? What business are we going into? So traditional B2B manufacturer, for those who are not familiar, this is a company that builds engineered products, focuses on production times, quality, lead times. Orders are handled through inside sales teams. We sell through distribution, highly specified products that are purchased by engineers. Sales are driven by field sales teams who are going to trade shows, distributing catalogs. This is a classic, established, somewhat old-time manufacturer, vertically integrated. And the question is, how do you take that type of a business and bring it online to conduct online sales? Next slide. So the value chain for this company, as you can see, the basic flow is vertical integration. We design the products, we develop a sales channel, we work with distributors, we build our supply chain. Everything's happening in-house to build products and ship products and deliver orders. Sales are done through distribution. This is often palletized orders, shrink wrapped on a pallet, sometimes monthly repeating orders, and actually only hundreds of real customers through distribution, although there's thousands of end users out in the field, but they're handled by distributors. So how do we convert that, and what are the challenges that we had to undertake to convert to e-commerce? So when we decided to open an online store, we had just launched a new WordPress website. We had gotten our marketing front end modernized. The question was, how do we add an online store? And it seemed like a perfectly broad, open, wide green field. This should be easy. No problem. We've got a fantastic operation. We can ship within 2 days. We can transport globally. We add as many SKUs as we want every week. Fantastic operation. But we can probably ratchet up sales somewhat by going online. Pick best-of-breed platforms. No problem. Magento seemed like the right choice. And at the time I came into the project, we had IT managing the Magento integration with our ERP system. And we had just started our new WordPress website that was enabling us to do some digital marketing. And I started out at the project saying, well, we need to just make sure these sites are integrated. We're going to have 2 subdomains, which is common for many B2Bs. Let's make sure the fonts match. Let's be sure the headers line up, and we should be good to go. How hard could that be? And that's where the fun started. And that's where I came up with the idea for this presentation, which is 97 projects you didn't really know you had to do before you launch and sell through e-commerce. So it's sort of a tale of 2 operating models. As we just discussed, an industrial products company is completely focused on internal operations and building the product and delivering it on time at the right price, So it functions for the customer. And the interesting point that was a major change for us to deal with is after the product is shipped, customers are invoiced, and then checks are sent. And you see at the bottom of this process, that's the end game. Ship products on time, handle customer service, invoice the customers, which are in fact distributors, and collect the money and move on. Now, with e-commerce, as we all know, there's a completely different customer journey. There are completely different ways to obtain the customer, and for a standard e-commerce operation, all of the engineering, design, manufacturing, and inside sales efforts may not be necessary. So the e-commerce model ends up with more of a product selection is made, warehousing is done, fulfillment is handled after orders are taken, and payments are taken when you order, and then the shipments go out. And so the question is, how do you marry these two models? Traditional company, there's thousands of companies like this in the US today, thousands globally. How do they move online and make life easy for everyone? What struck me in this process was if we hadn't been able to focus on the tasks I'll cover in a moment, we couldn't have possibly provided guidance to our developers, and developers are necessary. Customizations are necessary. IT, absolutely, of course, must be involved and had made all the right decisions. But there were many other projects that had to be done in order to prepare what we think will be a great site. Now, interestingly, this site is not live, so I'm not going to be able to show you anything that we actually built. And that's something that many developers are used to seeing, where we had to delay the ultimate implementation. But the homework projects are what I wanted to talk about. So the major discovery was this is no different than any other project. This is not an IT project, and it's not just a marketing project either. This is actually an entirely new business, an entirely new channel, and to do it right, you need to look at it holistically. All of the project planning basics that you know for other projects need to come into play. Who's responsible for what? Which teams are going to be involved? Who has decision-making authority? What's the schedule? Who's going to keep track of that? What are the goals and objectives you're going to set, and who's going to measure those and report on them, and who's responsible for driving those? There's a lot of organizational change involved. So this is an additive business, and that's the major takeaway for me in watching this transformation. This is an entirely new business. It's an overlay on virtually every department in the company. And we're adding new activities as well as requiring adaptation to some of the ways things are done. With the technical decisions, often with these projects, the marketing team may have the vision. IT is absolutely going to be involved and may make the technical decisions, but not all of the technical decisions are strictly hardware and speed and vendors. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made so you can assure you're going to have a sound business going forward that you can work with and adapt going forward. Last but not least, make sure that you're setting it up to succeed. When I did competitive analysis in the industry sector this company is in, I noticed many competitors were selling online. The good news is they'd been online for a few years, and because we were actually late to the party, I was able to see what mistakes they had made. And many of the competitors I felt had set themselves up to fail. In fact, I had such a difficult time finding the e-commerce page for several of them after I'd reviewed it the first time. I couldn't even find out where it was, and it was clear that the teams involved weren't talking to each other. I couldn't even find where the e-commerce page was within their website, and then on the website I could see lots of errors they'd made in terms of how I would be able to transact. One of the new things for an established manufacturing B2B company is user experience. While this client has tremendous user experience in the offline world, 7 people in inside sales. We have customers that have been there for have been customers for 30 years. They know everyone on a first name basis. They know their children's names. So the customer service is fantastic. That's a great experience. However, when you're going online, you don't have the people involved to answer the phone and take care of customers any way you need. The other observation I made that I think is really important when you're making this move, everything you need to do to launch your Magento site or your e-commerce site can be done without obsessing over your user experience. It will work. You can do it. You can transact, you can sell, you can get your products up there, you can do everything you need to do. However, this is actually the most important thing. It'll work without it, but without it, you're not going to be happy and you're not going to be successful. The biggest unexpected task was translating product data. When I joined the team, it appeared that all the product data was already uploaded from our ERP system into Magento. And that was true. And there were 70,000 products listed with some 30 to 40 potential technical engineered attributes, some of which are highly controlled and regulated products and attributes that had to be clearly communicated. Translating that product data became an enormous task. And I can attest to that with a spreadsheet that's about 25,000 rows, which is the products we chose to put online. And I think there's columns out to CX, which is all of the translation that was required to take SQL speak and product codes, part numbers, very digital attribute-oriented fields from our Epicor ERP system, and how do I convert those to customer-friendly, experience-driven, and also even promotional language. So translating product data was an enormous task, and it was probably 60% of the effort. And it required great involvement of every team in the company. So this can't be done in a vacuum. If it had been done in a vacuum, information would not be correct, would not be accurate, and we wouldn't have had the controls in place with a technical and engineered product. It's very important that you can control versions and control all of the information being provided about a product. So we had to look at how we would move forward in the future, not just accomplish it one time up front. Here's another task that also was really a surprise. We were conducting email marketing, had a nice email marketing program going, primarily with our B2B distributors. Successful, high open rates. The website was working well. We had a new WordPress website. However, once we started to determine how to translate our product data, it led to quite a large project with keywords and the realization that we needed to do a major keyword study, and we needed to figure out how to infuse every element with keywords on our site, whether they were index pages or not. And for a B2B industrial, that's another one that was an entirely new world. It wasn't clear where that would fit in terms of team roles and responsibilities, where the data would live, how we would manage it. The good news, if you do have an older industry or an established company, is the keywords don't change a lot. So we're not selling holiday dog costumes, which could change often. These are terms that do not change. However, the flip side is there's jargon that no one would know until you went out into an oil drilling platform and heard the guys talking, that you would learn the jargon. So you have to understand all of the formal terms, the jargon, all of the words that might be used, and put together a Bible that's going to help you infuse these everywhere, so that when somebody is searching the site, they can pull up the product they want based on what they're doing, what their need is, or just the words that they normally use. And this is before even getting into languages beyond English. Next slide, please. So even though marketing is going to be involved in any website activity, it turns out that moving to e-commerce also was going to require revisiting virtually every asset we already had. So think of an established B2B company with print catalogs still being printed, still being mailed. Customers who rely on them because they've been looking at them for years and they know where everything is. Field salespeople with PowerPoint decks that communicate information, and industrial information about installation and maintenance, lots of abbreviations and different types of nomenclature in all of the product information, but nothing that's really consumer facing. And I strongly believe that the B2B customer needs to be treated as well as a B2C customer. So the new customer of an e-commerce platform for a B2B has to get a package that's just as great as something you get from your Amazon order. It has to have the right labeling, the right information, all of the service information, all of the disclaimers, whatever documentation is needed for installing the product or returning it, etc. And similarly, there were a lot of strategic matters we needed to look at. We needed to look at who are the actual customers, who are these B2B customers that we want to treat like B2C. Who are they? What is their job? Why did they come to the site to buy this way versus the old way? And what are they going to want to do? What information do we need to make available so that they can get what they want done as quickly and easily as if they were buying a new shaving kit? Another important one, how are you going to handle the money? So an industrial company in operation for 75 years has banking relationships in this country and elsewhere. Deposits thousands of checks every month, writes thousands of checks, can handle EDI and fax orders, has an accounts receivables department who actually follows up with customers to handle any payment issues. Well, handling that online is an incredibly different activity. First of all, the payments have to be made before you ship the product, which is completely different from selling to a distributor where there may be a multi-week lead time or a blanket order and they are invoiced monthly. You have to handle the money up front or figure out how you're going to authorize transactions through some form of digital or plastic tender, and set up all of those gateways and integrations to somehow integrate with the other systems you already have so you can properly report what you're doing and blend it with your existing business. Another incredibly important area is how do you adapt and add the operation to your existing business? So I'm fortunate to be talking about a business that's extremely efficient, profitable, moving forward aggressively with technologies in the operational context. However, it's vertically integrated. Everything from receiving materials in to shipping products out happens inside the company. Every step within that requires an overlay to support the e-commerce delivery. Packaging has to be different, or does it? Primary packaging and secondary packaging. Most people buying through e-commerce aren't going to be expecting a pallet shipped partial load by a large truck. It's going to be shipped UPS or FedEx. When you order online, you expect to have your shipping confirmation arrive. You want to be able to track your package. That's not a trivial matter when you're not used to doing it and you yet ship 40,000 orders a year. What's going to go into those packages? Are they going to be different than what ships to a distributor? How are you going to coordinate that at the production point? With demand planning and lead times, some things may not change in terms of demand planning, but communicating lead times accurately becomes critical when there's a single customer who's already paid for their product online and must know when it's going to ship. And that represents a lot of change in how you build and dispatch your products to your production floor. Similarly, what training has to happen across all of these production operations? There's going to be new activities, which is the addition part, and there's going to be modified or changed activities, which is the adaptation part. And for me, those are the main things that drove every one of these tasks we had to undertake. The whole reason to go online is so you can sell more or find new customers and bring them into your distributors. However, this is often the last thing that you think about, which is why it's my last slide. All of these other tasks I mention, and it really is, it's actually more than 97, but I thought that was a great number. None of these prepare you for how are you going to actually leverage this e-commerce site to drive your online sales and to build your customer base online and to strengthen your relationship even with existing customers. And some of the challenges we had were, how would we price differentiate? What if we have an independent customer who already works with a distributor so they understand what kind of pricing they can get from a distributor? How do we potentially segment them and give them favorable pricing or not based on their identity, which is not actually known to us, but in reality, they are someone else's customer? How do we offer discounts? How do we determine upselling and cross-selling? When you have people who have been answering the phone for 30 years, providing first-rate technical guidance to customers about what they need to buy, what they might want to buy additionally, that's hard to translate into attributes within your database that will automatically trigger an upsell or a cross-selling offer, or that will even allow you to offer special promotions. So what we ended up having to do is a significant amount of surgery on our ERP system so that it would support fully all of the functionality that a platform like Magento supports. And sadly, the site isn't live, as I mentioned yet, but it's easy to anticipate with any B2B company that it's going to be at least 10% of your sales. So you have to get these right so you can fully leverage it, and that's what allows you to justify all of the additional projects and processes you need to perfect. So the key takeaway, and I think this is important for both the B2B folks in here as well as any of the integrators and agencies, there's a lot of addition and adaptation that needs to happen inside the company. And if you're a B2B, I think you have to do these in order to be a good client and to fully leverage your agencies and your integrators. And if you're an integrator or an agency, I think it's important that clients understand what this journey is like, because I don't think someone can sort of throw over the fence output from a SQL Server database and expect that your good work in customization will result in a robust and good experience on the e-commerce site. There's a lot of work to be done before it happens, and the only way to get it to work well is to lock these down and think them through before you execute. Any questions? Yes?
So part of your research moving forward was looking at your competitors, and you have a traditionally older B2B business. What drove the decision to go into an online market, and how did you establish a budget of what the expectations are around that business if it's a new area to get into?
Okay, great question. So the first question in what drove us to go online, it really is pretty simple. Everyone in this room buys tons of stuff online. Everybody who buys industrial products buys online. Everybody is saying to their colleagues at work, why aren't we selling online? So it was really a pretty simple decision. We do have a mindset of revitalizing this company and really moving forward and innovating. So it was just, obviously you need to be online. It wasn't any more complex than that. And in terms of establishing a budget, this is where it's cool to work for an established company that's also mid-size and not public. We were able to really just invest what we needed to invest with the expectation that the ROI would be there.
Why 25,000 out of the 40,000 or whatever?
Oh, that's a great question. The question is, why did we decide to have 25,000 products out of the 70 or so thousand SKUs we actually have? So this is a company that has about 75,000 SKUs, and somewhere between 10 and 30 are added every week. Some of these minor customizations, but nevertheless we create a new part number and a new bill of materials and may add sort of a different colored knob or something like that. A lot of the products, all of the products have been available since their inception, so some of them have been on the market since 1965. We really don't want to promote some of those anymore. They're not profitable, et cetera, but there are still people who want to replace them because after 30 years, the one they have wore out and they need a new one. There's also some products that we considered too exotic and too complicated to specify, and also slow sellers. So those weren't going to go online. And then similarly, there were some that just, the margins really aren't there. It's a line of business where we don't feel we can compete with some of the other competitors selling online. So we rationalized the online catalog in terms of what was searchable. Now, it turns out almost all of the products are findable if you type in the part number, which can be 30 or 40 characters in the case of a technical product. But in terms of the filter taxonomies we set up and what was filterable and sort of searchable, we limited it to just the products we really wanted to sell. Other questions?
I'm a little confused about the channel strategy. E-commerce is for which channel? End users or distributors? Because it sounds like there's obviously a well-established distributor community that's associated with this particular manufacturer, and the goal is to sell direct. How are you managing that channel?
I think it's safe to say that's one reason we delayed our launch. The business model we've employed provides discounts to distributors, and then they can mark up the product, and it really ends up sort of back at retail for the end customer. We needed to think through how that was going to work. Now, in the case of an industrial product, one thing that would prevent major conflict is if a customer was going to buy hundreds of units, they would probably go through distribution because they know they can get some different types of service and support from the distributor, and they can get a better price because they can talk to somebody and say, I'm buying hundreds of these, give me a better price. So we believe that the primary sales will be onesie-twosies as sort of lead-ins to projects. The other part of it is we realized that we could number two, we're selling at full price online, so that's actually its own differentiator right there. And we figured that would actually somewhat support the distributor's model by saying, look, if you buy online, it's going to be full price, but maybe you only want to buy one or two. You can get a better price by buying in bulk and going to a distributor. But it's not fully resolved, such as how that will work out with the sales teams and exactly how they manage their territories. Question over here?
How are you handling order history? Are you bringing in all historical orders since 1965? And is everything coming into the website, including photos?
Order history, the order history is all about what we've sold to distributors. So we actually don't know who the end customer is in many cases, which is another challenge for many B2B industrials. So order history is what it is in our ERP system, which is robust and functioning. In terms of order history online, that will also be available because what we did is we've integrated Magento with our Epicor ERP system. So that order history will be there. But the manner in which that's communicated and available online is going to be essentially a phase 2 project where we're going to have to ask somebody to chat or call to get their long-term order history in some cases.